All right, let's jump right into a mystery you've probably noticed, but maybe haven't put a name to. We're going to figure out why competing companies, the ones that are supposed to be rivals, so often end up looking, acting, and feeling, well, pretty much the same.
I mean, really think about it. You walk into different grocery stores and the layouts are weirdly similar. The marketing feels the same. One source for this explainer pointed out a case in Norway where all the big grocery chains, Kiwi, Rima, Extra, all jacked up their prices at almost the exact same time. So, what is going on here? Is it some kind of genius hive mind? Or is there something else pushing them all in the same direction?
Okay, so to get to the bottom of this corporate cloning, we first have to look at how companies think about change. And we'll start with the most simple, straightforward answer. The one that sounds great on paper, but doesn't quite capture the whole messy reality.
So these early theories, called factor studies, basically treated change like you're assembling IKEA furniture. You have a list of things that help you, the drivers, and a list of things that get in your way, the barriers. It's a very logical, very neat and tidy approach. But as we all know, people and companies are rarely that simple.
And when you look at the checklist for what makes change successful, it's pretty much common sense, right? Researchers Shields and Young laid it out. You need the bosses on board. You need money and time. You need good training, and everyone needs to know what the goal is. Makes perfect sense. It's a solid game plan.
But of course, things go wrong, and the checklist model tries to account for that too. I love how researcher Tomas Kasarinen broke down the barriers. You've got your confusers. That's when nobody can agree on what you're even trying to do. Then you have the frustrators. This is all about the people, the culture pushing back. And finally, the delayers. The classic tech problems and setbacks that just slow everything down.
And here's where that simple checklist idea starts to show its cracks. I mean, if it were all just about ticking off boxes, leading change would be easy, and we all know it is definitely not. This whole model kind of ignores the messy, emotional, human side of the equation, and that brings us to the next, much deeper layer.
So what's the real problem? Well, it turns out the biggest roadblocks to change aren't found on any spreadsheet. Nope, they're inside our own heads. The real game is navigating the incredibly complex, often political, human dynamics of an office.
Organizational psychologist Edgar Sheen gave us this just brilliant way of thinking about it. He said that whenever there's change, we're all caught in this tug of war between two different kinds of anxiety. On one side, you've got survival anxiety. That's that pit in your stomach feeling that if we don't change, we're toast. But pulling just as hard in the other direction is learning anxiety. And that's the fear of looking like an idiot trying something new, the fear of failing, of losing the respect you've earned.
And this is Shine's big insight right here. For any real change to actually stick, the fear of doing nothing has to be more powerful than the fear of learning something new. It's why just turning up the pressure on people, cranking up that survival anxiety never works on its own. If you don't also make it safe for them to learn and maybe even fail a little, they'll just resist.
Okay, so change isn't a checklist, and it's all tangled up in our human fears. That gets us closer. But it still doesn't quite answer our original question. Why do all these companies end up looking like clones? Well, now we get to the really good part. The big reveal.
The answer comes from this really important paper from way back in 1983 by two sociologists, DiMaggio and Powell. And they gave us this idea called institutional isomorphism. Now, I know, it sounds super academic, a real mouthful, but the idea itself is actually pretty simple. It says that over time, powerful and often invisible forces push organizations in the same field to become more and more similar. So, the first of these invisible forces is what they call coercive isomorphism. You can think of this as the you have to force. It's all about outside pressure. We're talking about government regulations, legal standards, or even just strong cultural expectations. Companies play along because they have to be seen as legitimate and to keep operating.
Then we have mimetic isomorphism. This is the copycat force. Think about it. When a company is facing a ton of uncertainty, maybe a new technology drops or the market goes crazy, what's the easiest, safest thing to do? You just look around, find the company that seems to be winning, and you copy them. It's a totally human response to not knowing what to do. And that brings us to the third force, normative isomorphism. Now, this one is a bit more subtle. It's driven by the professionals themselves. As people go to the same schools, read the same books, go to the same conferences, they all start to believe in the same one right way to do things. This creates this powerful industry-wide groupthink that makes everyone's approach start to look the same.
So let's just boil this all down, because it's a fantastic framework. Coercive pressure is all about following the rules. Mimetic pressure, that's about following the crowd. And normative pressure is about following the curriculum. What everyone learned was the right way. And together, these three forces create what the authors called an iron cage, pushing all the companies inside it toward being basically the same.
Okay, so we've named these invisible forces. Now for the big so what question. Why does understanding all this even matter? Well, it matters because if you can't see these forces, you can't fight them. And this is the key to finally breaking out of that copycat trap.
See, when these pressures keep working on an industry over time, a certain way of doing things becomes institutionalized. And that just means it becomes so normal, so default, that nobody even questions it anymore. It's just the way things are done around here.
And the absolute best example of this is the keyboard you're probably using right now, the QWERTY layout. It was literally designed back in the 1870s to keep the metal arms on old typewriters from getting jammed. We've had way more efficient, faster layouts for decades, but we're stuck with QWERTY. Why? Because it's institutionalized. It's just too big of a hassle for everyone to change now.
And that right there is the big takeaway. You can't fight an enemy you can't see. But once you can name these pressures, once you can see the rules, the crowd, and the curriculum at work, you can start to make conscious choices. You can start asking the hard questions, like, are we doing this because it's actually smart, or are we just copying our competitor? Is this rule a real constraint, or is there a more creative way to think about it?
So that's the question I really want to leave you with. Take a hard look at your own job, your own company, your industry. Are the changes happening around you genuine strategic innovation, or are they just the echoes of these invisible forces, pushing everyone down the exact same path? Because knowing the difference, well, that could be the thing that separates the true leaders from everyone else who's just blending into the crowd.